Ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Here we are again in our, 11th lecture. As you remember, the last lecture, in the last lecture we discussed, two beautiful, interesting, short stories for children, Babes in the Wood, and the other one was the Queen Bee. And as I told you before, these texts on these stories are important for the final exam. I mean that you have to read the stories so you can answer any question about these stories in the final exam. Because some of the questions might be specific. I mean specific about the text itself, about the characters, about the theme, about, who does what, who is who is where, and, things like, these, and then questions might be related to the relations between the characters or the main characters in each story. So in today's lecture, lecture 11, we start not a short story. In fact, it's a novel. Okay, a novel, one of the most famous, novels in children's literature, which is originally an Italian novel. Okay, and this novel was translated into many different languages. Okay, this novel, of course, is a long one. We will not have all of it, and it will not be required all. So I divided the text of this novel into two lectures, lecture 11 and lecture 12, or lecture 11 and 12 and 13. So 11, 12 and 13 will talk about the, not talk about, they include the text of the first, let's say, about five chapters, and then lecture 13 will include, will have the last 4 chapters. So we'll have about, let's say, about 8 chapters, and they'll be divided into 3 lectures, 11, 12, 13. And then the last lecture, lecture number 14, will be general discussion about Pinocchio, about this novel, including, a biography about the author, about the author's life, about the origin of Pinocchio, the novel Pinocchio, and about the moral lessons that we learn, or that children learn from this novel, and then some historical background, and some studies about the novel, including study about the point of view, the figures of speech, and so on. So these lectures, 11, 12, and 13, will not be that long in terms of lecturing, okay? Because you have to depend on the text that is, included in the contents of each lecture. And the contents of lecture, as from the, if you remember from the very beginning, from the first class of first lecture we met, lecture, the introductory lecture, or maybe the second lecture. I think it was the first lecture, in which I told you that you had to read the text of these stories from the very beginning of the semester, so you have enough time to study them well when it comes to the final exam. If you remember, a Word file was included, or was attached to lecture 1 out of the introductory unit, and that Word file included the stories, the short stories, including the novel of today's discussion اللي هي Pinocchio. So again you have to read the chapters assigned from Pinocchio. Okay, Pinocchio, as I've just said, you know, in today's lecture, lecture 11, there is something also special, let's say, about, you know, 11 about Pinocchio, which is a summary. Yani, the whole novel is put in a short form, let's say as a short story. It's yani, put for you in 2 or 3 pages. Slide 1, 2, and 3. Here says the end. Okay, this is a very brief summary of Pinocchio. Okay, it gives you a general idea about, you know, this novel from the very beginning to the end, but you know, a lot of details you need to know about Pinocchio, and they are really very interesting details about, you know, this character اللي هو اللي هو sort of a puppet. Okay, sort, you know, of a puppet اللي هو زي تبع الدمى العرائس. Okay, a piece of, you know, wood, okay, or a log, you know. We'll talk about it later. Now, just to tell you that, you know, these 3 slides, you know, have, you know, Pinocchio in the whole novel in a very brief summary. Okay. Okay. So as you see from the very beginning here, let's talk about this summary to have an idea about the whole story or the whole novel. Of course, you know, please remember anytime you come to any character or any place, you have to underline and make sure you know this character, who he or she is, and his or her relation to the main characters, Pinocchio and Geppetto, and then also you underline any name or expression related to the setting, you know, a name of a place or an expression of time, you know, that is all related to settings. So we have to also know these things. So the story here, I mean, this summary starts about, you know, the Geppetto, one of the main characters, who was the father of, you know, Pinocchio, who's you know, originally a carpenter who found, you know, a piece of wood, you know, a log, you know, and from this log he made, you know, a puppet, you know, a form, you know, or a shape of a little boy, you know, and you know, this little boy once, you know, it had, you know, hands, you know, it hit this old man, the father Geppetto once. It had, you know, a foot, you know, it also shot the old man Geppetto. And then there are many, you know, funny events, you know, that you read about, you know, Pinocchio and how mischievous and naughty he is. Okay, so the story here talks about, you know, sort of adventures, you know, let's say, you know, things that, you know, and experiences that, you know, Pinocchio goes through, and you know, many of these, you know, experiences and many of these, you know, events are really, you know, funny and silly, and you know, from this, you know, Pinocchio, you know, from these, you know, events and experiences, different experiences, you know, he learns a lot. He learns a lot, and he, you know, at the end of the novel, he becomes a grown-up, you know, person, a grown-up boy, and then because he, when at the end of the novel, when he becomes a grown-up person, a mature child, a mature, you know, boy. So he becomes a real boy as sort of a reward for not being any more naughty. Okay. So anyway, again and again, I repeat myself here that you need to read the story, I mean the novel, to know يعني, the details, okay, of the life of Pinocchio, and you know his adventures, and you know his naughty, you know, actions and deeds, you know, with his father, Geppetto. So because if you don't read the text, you will lose a lot. While reading, please, especially when it comes to chapter 1, you know, the original text, okay, as you see here, chapter 1, you know, you have to look for, you know, as I've just said, characters, setting, figures of speech, and the point of view. So we have, in terms of point of view, we have, as an example here, of course, it's a third person, you know, point of view, in which, you know, the writer uses he tells a story of someone else, you know, he, she, they, okay. But sometimes here we have, you know, the writer, you know, comments on the events and introduces, starts, you know, by introducing the story for the readers, for the children, and he uses I, he means here the writer. So the writer interferes sometimes in commenting, first in introducing the novel, and then in commenting on some actions or some events, as you see here on this page that you see, اللي هو chapter 1, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line. I do not know how this really happened. Okay. Then he starts saying he, his. So here I is the writer commenting. So to introduce. Then he comes back from time to time with the pronoun I to comment on the events of the story. Okay. Then there are some other examples of some figures of speech. Okay. See here, for example, chapter 2, as you see, the first, the 8th line, I think, you know, says he became as wild as a beast, and no one could, you know, we have, let's say, he became as a wild beast. Well, this is an example of a figure of speech. Here, this is a comparison between Geppetto, okay, the father, comparing him to a wild beast. So here, sort of a comparison, and you know, as we have also as used to, as a tool of comparison, and we call, of course, we call this simile. So this is an example of a simile. Okay, and next, as another example here. Okay, that's all, you know, there's just one example, but you know, in the other, you know, chapters, you'll have some more of these, you know, figures of speech, so you have to know them. Okay, so please remember that you have to read the text and rely on the details that you read. Okay, and if there is any question, please let me know through the email, okay, or through through my email. Okay, thank you very much, and that's all for this lecture. See you soon in another one. Thank you very much. Good luck for you.